What's up, guys? My name is McKeown. I'm a licensed real estate agent both in Texas and in Florida, specifically in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and Orlando markets. I am also, though, a real estate investor. I have about $5 million in properties, and I've accrued that really over the last 5 or 6 years since I first dabbled in real estate itself. Now, my intention with this video is really to break down whether or not a duplex, a triplex, or a quad makes sense for you to purchase as a first investment. Now, the beauty with real estate investing is there really isn't one way for success. There are so many different people out there investing in real estate in so many different ways. But if you were trying to get into real estate investing for as little money down as possible, this multifamily route that I'm going to be explaining for you guys is definitely a great option. Also, when it comes to purchasing a multifamily as your first investment, that's exactly what I did. Now, in the summer of 2017, I bought a duplex with my VA loan. And even if I didn't have the opportunity to utilize a VA loan, if I wasn't a veteran myself, I would have purchased this house with an FHA loan. Now, fast forward about 2 or 2.5 years from there, I used my VA loan again for my third property and purchased a fourplex. So I have quite a bit of experience with purchasing multifamilies, and even since then, I've sold those and upgraded to 2 large commercial buildings. But before I get into whether or not a multifamily makes sense for you, honestly, guys, the best piece of advice that I have for you is to make sure that you work with a lender as well as an agent that knows what the heck they are doing. For instance, let's use an analogy here. If you have a child and you're taking that child to soccer practice. Well, you make it to soccer practice, but realize that that soccer coach has never even played soccer before. They've not even had any background or experience in soccer. If you want your child to get better at soccer and actually know what they're doing, you're likely going to wind up switching coaches or switching practices to a team that the head coach actually has played soccer and has some background in it. The very same thing should be applied here in real estate. Do not partner up with an agent and or a lender that has no experience in investing, that has no experience in having a buyer purchase a duplex, triplex, or quad. Because I can tell you, and I will be getting into the details here shortly, you could waste a lot of money and find out that you can't even purchase the property from the get-go. So let's jump into it, guys. A duplex, a triplex, or a quad. Those are your options when it comes to purchasing a multifamily, because if you go above a quadplex, you're actually looking now at commercial financing rather than just traditional, conventional FHA, VA, so on and so forth, with just regular financing. So we're gonna stick to just 2, 3, or 4 unit properties, but I'm gonna piggyback on what I just said about making sure you get connected with a lender and an agent in your local market that knows what they are doing. If you do not have someone, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. Shoot me an email or reach out to me on Instagram. I'm very well connected across the country and can get you an agent that is not that soccer coach with no experience. It's going to be an agent and or a lender that actually has done this and does it for a living. Now, the real reason I say this is because self-sufficiency is something that not a lot of agents and lenders understand or even really realize until you're halfway through a contract and you're financially obligated to close on the property and then your loan gets denied. Now, what is self-sufficiency? Self-sufficiency is going to apply to an FHA loan on a triplex or a quad. Only a triplex or a quad. Now, self-sufficiency, depending on your market, depending on also the cost of homes in your market, as well as just the total mortgage cost, we're talking principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So for instance, here in Texas, where taxes are quite high, self-sufficiency is almost impossible for most triplexes or quads here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I would say definitely in the Austin market. And Houston and San Antonio, you may be a little bit better off, and maybe those smaller submarkets, a triplex or quad could work. But for the most part, in the DFW area, my local market, you can no longer use your FHA loan to purchase a triplex or quad. And you may be asking, why? Well, it's the self-sufficiency rule. The blanket rule here is 75% of your rent needs to cover your entire mortgage. And due to just the increased property taxes and home values here, again, using an FHA loan for a triplex or quad is nearly impossible in my market. Now, also I live in Texas. If you're looking at big markets like Seattle and San Diego, Chicago, you're likely not going to have the option to utilize your FHA loan to purchase a triplex or quad. So really the only option you have is a duplex because it does not have self-sufficiency requirements. So for those folks that are not veterans and maybe they live in a little bit more expensive market, your only option, if you're trying to put as little money down as possible, is your 3.5% down FHA loan. Try to get as much seller credits as possible to cover all of your closing costs. And at the end of the day, you're going to be in that duplex for really the total down payment of just 3.5% of whatever the purchase price is. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, if you are a veteran, thank you obviously for your service, you are going to be gifted with the opportunity to purchase a duplex, triplex, or quad without any limitation because the VA loan does not have any self-sufficiency requirements. So here in my local market, or maybe if you live in San Diego or one of those more military-heavy large cities that unfortunately the prices of homes have gone up substantially and it's not really affordable living, and that's maybe why you want to go the multifamily route, so you can help offset your mortgage. If you're utilizing your VA loan, you're in luck. You can purchase a duplex, triplex, or quad with no limitations whatsoever. And again, if you get seller credits that cover any and all of your closing costs, you can essentially buy a property for next to nothing. Now, yes, just like Dave Ramsey said, a VA loan is 0% down, so you're fully financing 100% of the loan. So you're going to have a larger mortgage payment, but the beauty of the VA loan, no mortgage insurance. So yes, it's going to be the best option of the 3 loan types. But again, a VA loan is only going to be offered to those that have honorably served and are eligible for their VA loan. Now, the last option in terms of financing, if you're looking to purchase a multifamily as your first investment, and I would say most of the time this is not the direction that most people go, because if you're purchasing your first investment property, you probably don't have a ton of available cash. Now, you want to have reserves, you want to have enough for a down payment, and a conventional loan is oftentimes going to be the best option when it comes to purchasing a house outside of maybe a VA loan. But 15% down on a duplex, triplex, or quad can be an option as well. However, there are no current options as we speak that are going to be as affordable as a 0% down VA loan or 3.5% down FHA loan on a 2 to 4 unit. So the jump up from 3.5 or maybe 0% down all the way to 15% down for a conventional loan can often deter first-time investors, or I guess first-time investment properties that people are looking to purchase to live in. Now, there is one thing that's good about a 15% down conventional loan option, is you're only looking at about 5% more that you've got to pay on that note before you have your mortgage insurance drop off. Now, on top of that, when it comes to the 15% down, you're putting more money into the property. So yes, you're going to have a lower mortgage payment because you're taking out less of a loan. So after discussing self-sufficiency as well as the options that you may have when it comes to lending, you may be kind of singled down to just a duplex as your option. Now, depending on your market, depending on utilization of the VA, FHA, or conventional loan, you may be opted into maybe a triplex or a quad. Now, the biggest thing here is it's going to be market dependent. Now, what I can tell you is specifically in my market, in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, there really is no triplexes. You either go duplex or you go quad. Those are your 2 options because the inventory for triplexes are just not there. Now, on top of that, the inventory is a massive issue here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area when it comes to multifamilies. There's just not a lot of them. Now, I'm going to speak on other markets that I don't necessarily have a ton of expertise in, but I have traveled to Chicago, and a lot of the homes up in Chicago are multifamily homes because it's an older city, and they have a lot less space to build. So a lot of people, what they did was they built multifamilies, and that's just not the case and hasn't been the case in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and just Texas in general. Due to all the space that we have, we really haven't needed to build a whole bunch of multifamilies to allow, I guess, affordable housing in that case. So it's really going to depend on your market, but I would single down, hey, am I going to be looking at a duplex, a triplex, or a quad? Now, if you're still stuck between deciding duplex, triplex, or quad, let's go ahead and analyze every single one of these. Duplexes specifically are going to have a little bit more variety. You could find a very, very small duplex that are 1 bed or 1 bath units on each side. You could live by yourself in one side, and then you could rent out for a small amount the other side. But duplexes also range to maybe 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms on one side, maybe 2 or 3 baths. My specific duplex that I bought first actually had 3 bedrooms and 2 baths on one side, as well as 3 bedrooms and 2 baths on the other. I had one tenant that I essentially inherited when I purchased the property, and then I also sacrificed a little bit more and rented out the 2 upstairs bedrooms on my side of the duplex. So now I was getting rent from the other side and didn't ever have to worry about them because they were not living with me. And then I also collected $600 or $700 a month from each individual person I rented out each room on my side of the duplex as well. Now, if we jump up to a triplex, that gives you now 2 opportunities or 2 other units to rent out. Now, you may have a little bit smaller units when it comes to triplexes. You're not going to likely have a ton of triplexes that have 3 or 4 bedrooms in every single unit. At that point, you're talking 9 bedrooms, maybe 10 bedrooms, depending on the triplex. More than likely, you're going to be looking at maybe 1 or 2 bedroom units in a triplex. So if you're someone that likes to, live alone, and you want your whole unit to yourself, a triplex or a quad could make a little bit more sense, because as you go further up, and the next would be a quadplex, you're going to have a lot of quadplexes that are 1 or only 2 bedroom units. So again, it gives you the option to live in one, maybe it's a 1 or 2 bedroom, and then you still have 2 units to rent out for a triplex and 3 units to rent out if you're a fourplex. However, when it comes to triplexes and quads, because they are smaller units, you're likely going to get less per rent than, let's say, just the other side of your duplex. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath, other side of the duplex is certainly going to rent more in your local market than just a small efficiency or 1-bedroom unit in a fourplex. But again, you're only collecting 1 rent on a duplex from your other side tenant. On a fourplex, you're collecting 3 other rents. Now, the next thing that I want to bring up and touch base on here is because it's often forgotten. When it comes to purchasing your first investment property, I'm going to put a blanket statement and say that for the most part, you're not going to be, rolling in a lot of cash. Okay, so being a little bit safer isn't going to be a bad option. Now, when you look at a fourplex, most fourplexes are going to have 4 of everything, meaning they're going to have 4 kitchens. They're going to have 4 different bedrooms, potentially 8 bedrooms or 12, depending on how large the fourplex is. They're going to have 4 of everything, rather than a duplex is just going to have 2. For a fourplex, one of the biggest things when I owned mine was I had 4 HVAC units. All 4 of those HVAC units when I purchased the property were not by any means brand new. So I knew that, hey, eventually down the road, I'm going to have to replace at least 1 of these, maybe 2 of these, if not all of these eventually, which if you're not familiar with how much HVACs cost, here in Texas, they are vital and you need them, especially in the summer, but they can range anywhere from $4,500 to $8,500, $9,000, $10,000, depending on the size of the unit. Now, if you multiply that by 4, I think you guys can kind of start to understand where I'm getting at. A duplex is not going to be a bad option as your first investment. You're only going to have 1 other dishwasher on the other side of the duplex that you got to replace when your tenant trashes it. You only have 1 HVAC unit that goes out on the other side that you may need to replace. It's going to be a lot more affordable when it comes to just maintaining the properties. I myself have an investor that made quite a bit of money on the property since they purchased it just a few years back, but every time they had a tenant move out, they had to do an entire make ready with their property management company. So if you've got 4 tenants, you've got 4 make readies that you've got to do on an annual basis. And this is also another thing that just kind of came to me at last minute here. If you're talking about smaller units, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom efficiencies, for the most part, you're going to have higher turnover, meaning people are going to maybe find a better option. It's a lot easier to move out of 1 bedroom than it is a large house, okay? When you have a duplex and you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath side, I actually had 1 tenant that stayed in my duplex for a majority of the 5 years that I owned the property and would have probably continued to stay there if I kept that tenant. So when you first got into investing and thought that buying a fourplex is the most desirable route, I would suggest that you look at all of the missing pieces and decide which route is best, because not all the time does a fourplex make the most sense. And on top of that, not all the times is a fourplex even an option. Again, going back to the self-sufficiency, if you're in an expensive market, you're trying to buy a triplex or quad, it's not going to work with an FHA loan. So hopefully some of that information helps you decide whether or not it's duplex, triplex, or quad, or maybe you're just in a pickle and unfortunately your only option may be a duplex. But the next question lies, hey, I'm going to purchase a duplex. What's the next step after that? Because me personally, I was always looking to really understand what's going to come next for me. Now, I purchased a duplex in the summer of 2017, and just 5 months later, I was able to purchase a single family. Now, the beauty and one of the great things that comes with purchasing a multifamily as your first investment property is that it's really, honestly, at the end of the day, going to come down to the underwriter, but it becomes a lot easier to move across town into a single family from a multifamily than just a single family to another single family. So if you purchase a duplex, triplex, or quad initially, and you decide it's just not for you, or you decide to move to another property sooner rather than later, it's going to be a lot easier to do that and move into a single family down the road, even in my case when it was just 5 months later. So should you purchase a multifamily home as your first investment property? I would say it's a tremendous way to get things going, but it is not the only option for you. I know a single family home is oftentimes going to be a lot more affordable. I guess our generation, in a nutshell, when we think about purchasing a home, we're really not thinking about purchasing a home in a lower income area or a home that has a tenant on the other side. So oftentimes people will err more towards single families. The only downside with a single family, which I did technically with my duplex anyways, is the only real way to make a single family an investment property and live in it is if you're renting out the rooms. Now, when that comes to transitioning, you can turn it into a full-time rental, but if you're going to be purchasing a single family out the gate, you're likely not going to be able to purchase a multifamily next. Now, I'm not going to say that this is impossible, but it is sure easier to go from a multifamily that you purchased and then down the road purchase a single family, then purchasing a single family, and then eventually down the road getting an underwriter to accept you to purchase a multifamily. I hope that helps break down whether or not a multifamily makes sense for you. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them down in the comment section below or reach out to me on social media. All of that stuff is in the description below. Thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help. And stay tuned for the next video.